Greetings and welcome back to the channel. I have not been playing a vast amount of Vassal in the last week or two, or at least nothing televised, so thought I would just chuck out a quick bit of content since the group stages for the MWS Top 32 have been announced, and I thought we'd take a quick look at the groups, maybe some predictions, and a quick look at the pools. I'm not going to be going into full detail for obvious reasons, namely I'm competing in this event, but a lot of what you can say about those pools is not exactly rocket science, so we'll dive in a little bit. So without further ado, let's jump in and have a look at the groups themselves. So I'm not entirely sure how the groups are done. If I had to guess, it's done via rankings, basically in this order. So it's rank 1 overall here, down to 8 here, and then filling up again here and here and here. So we should expect the people in the player 4 slot to be slightly lower ranked than those in the player 1 slot. Not to say that they are necessarily better, but it's a good indicator. So as we go forward with predictions, where we don't necessarily know, we are tending to favour the players over on the left side here. So let's have a look and see what we end up with. So Group A, we have Radek, we have Andre Demings, otherwise known as Carnage, we have David Corrales or Coppo, and we have Izzy. So for those who are unaware how this format works, we have 3 weeks to play 3 games. Everybody plays everybody per group, and the top 2 from each group advance, and those become the top 16, which then go into a single elimination event. At least I'm pretty confident that's true. And tiebreakers are done on, I'd be guessing, I think it's margin of victory, but I might be wrong. So yeah, no, I remember. Tiebreakers are done based on your placement in the rankings in the first place. So in other words, if there was a tie in Group A, then Radek would win that tie because he was the highest ranked player, I believe. I'm pretty confident. So Group A then. So we've got Radek, Andre, David, and Izzy. Well, first of all, in terms of factions, that becomes a little bit interesting. So Radek, known for his pretty solid outcasts generally, but also, you know, for the ability to faction hop pretty efficiently. So has done some solid stuff with the majority of the factions in the game, as far as I know. But outcasts are what I certainly think of when I think of him, and also Bio. So I know that he's got very, very solid results with those two. And I think the good news about the top 32 is that it tends to bring people more towards, bring them more in line with their comfort. So people don't tend to try out new shit right at the top 32 now. Of course, some people do, but generally speaking, it tends to trim off the marginal picks. And so I would expect Radek to be bringing either outcasts or Bio. But he's one of the less predictable players. Andre has been on a fairly formidable Predator 2 run recently, and has been largely soloing her, but we recently saw him on Sheamus for another big American event, and what else has he been playing? Those are the 2 that immediately come to mind. Based on his current showing in Houston, I would imagine that he'll continue to bring Predator into the top 32 event. He doesn't tend to stray too much, so people will be able to prep for him, but we'll see how much that helps, because he's a very, very strong player. Then we have David Corrales or Coppo. I believe the last time we played, what was he on now? Let's jump over to Longshanks quickly. I think he's played some Bio, but let's... This is Group A. I should have had this open in advance, but there you go. Good news is it'll be open for the following groups. Andre, what have you been... sorry, not Andre, Coppo. What have you been playing, sir? Yeah, he's got Bio and Neverborn on record. Most recent event was Elemental. What was he playing there? He was playing Neverborn there. He's playing some Nikima 2 and Dreamer 2. So most recent, Nikima 2, Dreamer 2, overall, Bio or Neverborn. So I don't know how much practice he's had recently. If the MWS was his last event, then obviously he's not got a huge amount going on locally, because that was I think that was a month or two ago at least. But then some players don't, you know, they come back after 2 months and play exactly the same as if they hadn't. So that's certainly not the case for me. I feel it if I stop playing for a week. So in this one, I'm gonna sort of not really favour David to come out of this one alive, because the fourth player is Izzy, a strong Thunders player, has some notable issues with cleanliness of play, so often a lot of sort of take back stuff that's a bit dodgy. Nothing against the rules, but just really needs to work on cleaning that up. And so unless he gets disqualified or something mad for that, then I would expect him to do pretty well, because he's got a solid record with Thunders. He's more than willing to play the stronger stuff within Thunders, and Thunders themselves are one of the stronger factions. So I would put this group down to a fight between Redek, Andre, and Izzy. And I think Redek's one of the best players in the world, so I'm putting him through, and I would have to give Andre the edge. I've played against his Predator with Thunders, and it is formidable. So, yeah, I'm saying Redek and Andre coming out of that one. And that's that. All right, Group B then. So Group B is Billy from New Zealand, QT Pierogi from Russia, Hamdog also from New Zealand, and Funt. I'm going to be lying if I say immediately that I know where he's from. Cyprus. Right, well, that would explain potentially why I have no idea. I didn't know there was a Cypriot community. That's cool. But he seems to play largely on the MWS, which makes sense if you maybe don't have a Cypriot community going on. So Billy, QT Pierogi, and Hamdog I am reasonably well acquainted with. Funt, not so much. Therefore, I would just automatically say Funt, being lower ranked and less known to me, unlikely to go through here. Billy, one of the best players in the world, incredibly strong McCabe, but also has decent experience with a lot of the Explorers stuff. I would expect to see him on Explorers. QT Pierogi basically only plays Rezzers that I've ever seen in terms of, notable events. Does well, tends to be a player that sort of does very well and doesn't usually win. I think of myself in the same bracket, like I do pretty well, but don't tend to actually win. I'm going to give Billy the win here. So then the question is between QT and Hamdog. Hamdog has been running Seamus with mixed results recently, but is much better known for his Von Schill. So he did with Pack Mentality, which is the only podcast worth listening to in my eyes. That felt a bit harsh on other podcasts. Now I've just I meant it to be more positive about Pack Mentality. It sounded more negative about all the rest. I love Pack Mentality. I think it's an amazing podcast, and I think you should go and listen to it. Let's go with that rather than what I actually said the first time around. So Hamdog, one of the three hosts of that podcast, and did an excellent episode on Von Stuck. Sorry, I may have said Von Schill a minute ago. I meant Von Stuck. So he's done a good episode on Von Stuck and everything you should know about him. So if you're up against Hamdog, I'd go and have a listen to that just in case. As I say, people tend to move towards their comfort picks, and that would be a good description there. So is it going to be his Von Stuck, or is it going to be QT Pierogi's pretty wide range of Reza material? I don't think he's ever really sort of locked down on one thing. I know he's got a bit of a hard-on for McMorning too, but I don't know if that really translates to what he'd play within the top 32. So I'm saying Billy, and you know what? I'm going to put my faith in Hamdog here. I value putting a lot of reps in on certain masters, basically specializing more than I do having faction breadth, because I think that if you just, you know, I fear the man that practices one kick 10,000 times rather than 10,000 kicks once. I give him the lead, but it's tight. It's tight. If QT won that, I would not be surprised. It would not shock me, but I think I'm going to give it to Billy and Hamdog there. So New Zealand domination in Group B. As for fun, I just don't know much about the player, unfortunately. I don't think we've had the pleasure, or if we have, I don't remember the game specifically, so I haven't got anything to sort of lean on in terms of experience there. So then let's go and have a look at Group C. We have Michael Wheeler, so one of the other Pack Mentality trio. Hagen, otherwise known as Geist. We have Quicket, and we have Nico Topola. Geist, German player, known for his Outcasts, but another prolific faction hopper, very proficient in playing a great breadth of the game, but I think struggles from exactly the same thing that I was just talking about, that doesn't have that specialization in a single thing. There's nothing where I go, oh, I really, really fear this. No, it's just like he's very good with all of it, but not frighteningly good with any of it. And I think that's the case for several players here. And there's been a discussion recently on whether I'm talking shit and whether that breadth, for example, Radek plays a breadth, and yet he's probably right up there with Plague and one or two others for best player in the world, Ollie and so on. So you know, you can argue that my preference for specialization is bollocks, but if you believe, as I do, that specialization is a strength and not a weakness, then Geist's strengths are less important here. But again, that is very much up for debate. Then we've got Quicket, who has been on Rezzers for a long time, very much a sort of think tank kind of player, goes away, comes up with ideas, iterates, improves, tries to make them work, discusses it with other people, really tries to fine tune, and has risen pretty quickly in the rankings, so should be exciting to see what he comes up with. I know that recently he moved over to Bio for the Cartographers Cup and then found himself surprised that he was quite enjoying them, so we will probably see him either on Bio or on Rezzers. Honestly, neither one would surprise me. Strong player and definitely willing to put the work in to do the prep for this kind of event. You've got quite a lot of time here to do prep, so that will benefit him. And then we have Nikita Pola, who is a Polish Thunders player. We've had the pleasure many times. He tends to favor similar sort of masters and crews as me. So some Lin and some Shenlong and maybe some Asami. But I don't know if he's fully on the Asami train yet. So Lin and Shen are what I've seen him on a fair amount. And he's done quite a bit of Yoko too back in the day as well, I think. With mixed results, as the same for me. So it's only really Pope that really makes Yoko 2 really sing. Right, so predictions for this one. Michael over on his Explorers, very strong McCabe player, generally formidable. Oh, this group is the hardest to call so far. Problem is, I don't want to just say player 1 and 2 every time, because it just, you know, it's like, I don't know, it's like betting on the favourites in a horse race, right? You just go, well, they're favoured, so I'm just going to bet on them. That doesn't really tell you anything. And I've just got this sneaking suspicion that Quicket's going through. But I'm looking at it and going, right, so if he's going through, then that means one of the others isn't, you know, that otherwise would be. I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if. Right, I don't think Nico Topola is gonna win against. I think he may well take a game down, but I don't think he's going to qualify out of that group because it's a strong group. It's a tricky group, and his Thunders is really coming along. But I'm not sure it's just going to like. You'd have to have the run of your life to beat those three players from that position. So I'm gonna count him out, but you know, hopefully he'll give people a run for their money. So then my question is, do I think? I think Grogdog or Michael does prepare well for this kind of event. He puts the effort in. He's got an unbelievable meta behind him to train with, and I'm going to give him the edge. So I'll say Michael gets through. And then of Geist and Quicket, I think it's really close. I'm giving it to Geist. I'm gonna say Hagen takes that. But again, this is a bit like the previous group where I really wouldn't be shocked if Quicket comes through, and I've got this sort of like instinct that he will, but I just don't know which. I can't immediately say which one of those two players he'd beat out. So I'm going to give it to Michael and Hagen, but it's a close one. That's tricky. Okay, we move into Group D. We have Ollie, Landon or Pope. We have Dominus Nox and Davos. So we can say with relative confidence that Davos is fucked. No, I love him. I love him to bits. But he snuck into the 32 and he's bringing some jackdaw and some other outcasts shenanigans. But you've got Pope Dapper and Ollie in the group. You're in some serious trouble there. So you've got two very strong Thunders players. And I'm sharing some Discord servers with Davos, and his hopes are not high. Let's say he's planning to set some records, like the fastest anyone's gone out of the top 32 and so on. So then we come down to Dominus Nox and what we think he's going to pull off. So an Australian player. What's he been playing recently? Let's have a quick look. In terms of Ollie, I mean, he's one of the strongest players in the world on one of the strongest factions. I really would be very shocked if he didn't go through. Landon, I don't think has been playing a ton recently, but then this weekend he's in Houston playing there, and I think he's undefeated, but that is with 2 draws. But sort of flexing his Thunder's options. I think he played Yoko 2 twice, I want to say, and I mean, I'd have to go and check it. It might have been Jan Lois. I don't know. I don't know what else he played. I know he doesn't like Lin particularly, and I don't think he's big on the Asami train just yet. But he tends to pick smartly. So Dominus Nox has played a fuckload of Nekima 2 and not a lot else. So Nekima 2 is pretty busted. She's decent into Thunders, and if he specialises, he might pull it out. What's his win rate on her? 58%, but it's only over 12 games, so it's not exactly a huge sample size. I've got to give it to Ollie and Pope here. Dominus might come out and Nekima 2 some people, but I think Davos is in some trouble there. So then we come on to Group E. So this one is the one with Legislat, myself, Handful of Snakes, and James loves the jank mooring. So this one, I'd say the interesting one is Handful of Snakes, because I know he's a Danish player. All right, so let's go through. We've got Legislat, a very well-known Russian guild player, known for an enormous number of reps on Dashel 1, but also a proponent of Nelly, and has basically played most of guild an enormous number of times, is very, very strong. Then we've got myself, known recently for Asami, but also played a lot of Lin, and then had a stretch on Shenlong as well, so I could do the guide on him. And I've also got McCabe under my belt, which is relevant because we've got a guild and a bio player in the group. So with the current state of Asami, and with the current state of Thunders, and with it being the top 32, and as I say, sort of narrowing down the picks, I think one could reasonably assume that I'll be on Asami, and then one could reasonably assume Legislat will be on Dashel or Nelly or Lady Justice. Those are the three that I tend to think of him playing. A Handful of Snakes is a bio player, so one can imagine that he's almost certainly going to have a shitload of Ma games and not a lot else. Let's have a look. Yeah, loads of Ma, and then a bit of Zip, a bit of Clampets, and a bit of Brew too. All right, okay. So a little bit more variation than most bio players who just slam Ma. And then we've got James Love the Jank Mooring, lovely bloke, and plays Explorers, coming over from the UK. Tends to favour Ivan, if memory serves. Let's have a quick look at that. So here, I'm going to give myself and Legislat the benefit of the doubt. I know Handful and James have been putting in some results, but I don't think they've been sort of like really crushing with any specific master or versus any specific players that I'm aware of. And I think Asami runs pretty well into Explorers, not so well into Ma. So maybe I'll have to think through that one a little bit. And then Legislat is always a tricky one. I've no idea who would take a game between the two of us. Asami doesn't love Guild, so again, I might be pushed into a different direction. We'll see. But I would put myself and Legislat going through for Group E. So then we have Group F, which is Esquilax, Axelst, Rice? Don't know. No idea how to say his name. And Rosemarus. So jumping into F. So Esquilax sort of shot up this year again from Denmark, playing Explorers, has a very, very solid Maxine, McCabe. Those are the two that I tend to see him play. Just solid mechanical play and a lovely opponent. Axelst tends to play Outcasts, or at least that's my knowledge of him. Also from Denmark, so we've got the Danish group going on here. Then we've got Rice over on his bio, and he plays almost anything. So very, very much a generalist, broad player, difficult to prep for, but doesn't sort of super specialize in any one thing as a result. And you know, I've already explained my thoughts on that, but it can be very, very difficult to prep for. That's for damn sure. So yeah, Axelst, almost all of his games over on Outcasts, and who does he favour in Outcasts? I think it's been Vix, right? He plays a lot of Vix 2 and Levy. Yeah, Vix 2 and Levy. I don't know how they play into bio, because Rice and Rosemarus both on bio. Rosemarus plays a hell of a lot of Ma. Rice plays a hell of a lot of everything. Axel plays a lot of Levy and Vix, and Esquilax plays McCabe and Maxine. Who to favour out of those? I guess. Ooh. I think. I fancy Axelst winning that group. But Esquilax has put a hell of a lot of results. No, I'm going to give it to the Danes. I'm going to say Esquilax and Axelst here. Have I said the top two for every single one of these groups so far? Christ, I almost have. Except for B, I've just said the left two players. I'm so sorry. I get skewed by results. But I mean, those results don't come out of nowhere. And I do think that they're... Again, this is a group where if one of the bio players came up and had the game of their life and just took one of them down and maybe had an off day, yeah, maybe sure. But on an average, on a given day, I'm going to say Axelst and Esquilax are going to come out of that group. I just think they are. All right. Group G, we have Cackle, Jeremy Posner, otherwise known as Cadmus Breakfast, Ben Jules, one of the coveted rules lawyers from the MWS and SEV. Now, I do need to check SEV because I get him mixed up with another name, and I just need to make sure I'm not going to spout nonsense. So Cackle, known for his rezzers and known for playing out of keyword quite a lot and playing Archie everywhere and so on. SEV from Quebec in Canada and seems to play a good amount of Neverborn. Right, okay. Okay. Cackle, yeah, well known for prepping a lot. Similar to me, prepping a hell of a lot for online events, but sometimes gets dragged down by some health issues, so is maybe less able to play a lot running up to events, or has to abandon certain events on that basis. But because you've got 3 weeks to play all your games and you're not locked into sort of playing one a week, you can be a bit more flexible. You know, if your health's not up to speed 1 week, you can maybe play in the other weeks. So I think that this format will allow him to get his games in, and when he gets his games in, he's a very formidable player. Jeremy Posner, me and him almost always draw. I don't know why. Every time we play, we tend to draw. Looks like Celery's adding some stuff live, so we'll see what he's doing during the video. But I can't be asked moving, you know, like screenshotting and moving off. So whatever it is, will be. He plays Guild generally. I know he's been on Lucius recently, so we will see some new Lucius. Then we have Ben Jules, an American player, also playing a reasonable amount of the Guild stuff. He's been on some Tull. He used to be on Tull a lot. Yeah, Tull, and we've seen, I think he's been testing out the new Lucius stuff as well, just to have a look at it and so on. SEV, what have you been playing, my friend? You're on Neverborn, so I assume it is Nekima 2 and Dreamer 2. It is Nekima 1 and Zoraida and Dreamer 2. Okay, so Zoraida, fair enough. Jeremy's chances rest rather heavily on how good Lucius turns out to be. Cackle has been testing a hell of a lot of Lucius recently as well. In fact, there may be two... Cackle may play Lucius in the event. Normally we'd expect to see him on Reses, but he might play some Lucius. If so, if Ben or SEV come up with a very good anti-Lucius pick, this is one that could really this is one that could go a number of ways. Jeremy's Lucius is solid. He's a really good player. Of course, if you make it into this list, you're probably pretty good at the game. I think this is a format where prep is rewarded, and Cackle is a very, very heavy prepper. Health issues aside, I would expect him to come out of this group. So then it goes between Ben and Jeremy. Once again, I'm going to go with the left-hand player. I've played against Jeremy a bunch of times, and he's very thoughtful player. Been putting a lot of effort into getting his Lucius online, and since he's been playing a lot of Guild, he'll be well aware of Ben's potential options against Lucius. I trust him to come up with the answers, and as long as he can then weather the storm of Zoraida or Nekima Dreamer from SEV, then I think he'll be all right. Wouldn't surprise me at all. If anyone there gets a really solid answer to Lucius, they can pop out of that group. So that one is a tricky one to call, but all said and done, Cackle and Jeremy. Group H, Joker Boy, Austrian player, plays a lot of Maxine 2, plays a lot of Explorers in general, but because he largely plays on Vassal, has been able to faction hop massively and can cover a great deal of the game. So a little bit like Rice, very, very hard to prep for because builds lists that other people just don't build. I remember one time recently we met in an event, and very often what I'll do is I will predict what I would play if I were them, and then I build my list and I make sure that my list can play against that example list. And the list that I picked for him had not a single model in that he actually chose except for his totem. Not a single one. I got the title wrong. I got every single model wrong. So you really, really can't predict him. He gets a bit more predictable if he moves into Maxine 2. But that's not guaranteed either. It can very easily be Maxine 1. Nathan Linder, another one of the coveted MWS rules lawyers, and a prolific Yedza player, but also plays a very good amount of Nexus. So another Explorers player, but with a different pool than Joker Boy. And then we've got Bobber. I haven't seen him play for a good long while, and he was one of the judges at the Cartographers Cup, and then I think he had to jump in as a mercenary to help out one of the teams. So I'm not sure what he played there. Let's have a quick check. So it's Group H. Come on. Group H. Bobber, what have you been playing? And then we've got Haku, who tends to just go hunting for the next broken combo and then try to slam it onto the table and see how we do. That's been Zoraida Angel Eyes stuff and some other similar versions of that. He's not had the best results in recent events, so I'm going to say that he's not going to take it off these guys. Let's quickly check Bobber, because that's the one that I'm not sure about what he's playing. Joker plays several different systems, and I'm not sure how committed he would be to this event this year, and that can always be a problem. Like different, people's, for example, Radek. I know that his enthusiasm towards Malifaux has been on a bit of a dip recently compared to previous years, for example, where he's been all over it. So, but I think he's such a good player, he'll still come out of the group. But there are definitely like personal things that I might not know here that may well very strongly affect the rankings. For example, the New Zealand guys think that Billy often struggles in group stages for some reason, even though he's one of the best players in the world. He traditionally struggles in group stages, so I don't know. But I just rate him as a player. So Bobber plays Bio. He's got a particularly decent win percentage. One can imagine it's going to be a fuckload of Ma. It's a fuckload of Zip. So it's a fuckload of Zip. Christ almighty. Okay. So how does Zip face off against the EXS players? Because that's what matters. So what matters in that group is how well can Bobber Zip play into the Explorers of Nathan and Joker. I think he might do all right there, I'm really tempted to pick not player 1 and player 2 just so that I don't look like an absolute twat when doing these. For some reason, Nathan's a really good player. Specializes in Yedza and Nexus, so the question becomes whether these pools favor those masters. I guess that'd be a big thing. And then Joker Boy, whether he's on form. So sometimes he is, and when he is, he's fire, and when he isn't, he's really not. Let's say, for the sake of not picking player 1 and player 2 constantly, I'm going to go with Nathan and Bobber here. Okay. So now we can actually, if we wanted to, I'm not going to do it live, we could work out player 1 versus player 2, and we could work out who's playing which pool. But let's just move straight on to the pools, otherwise this video is going to take all week. So round 1, we have Corner Raid the Vaults on the map. Let's have a look at that map. So fair amount of blocking around, fairly central, sizable forest. Other than that, very simple. No hazardous we need to worry about. No, some destructible stuff. The center's pretty open, so ranged attacks reasonable here. What have we got in terms of... So we've got Raid the Vaults. So Raid the Vaults generally just kill the opponent and win that way. We've got some pretty killy strats in terms of in-your-face and sweating bullets. And then we've got the easy mode, Protected Territory, so you just kill them and then drop some schemes down later. Or, because it's corner diagonal, you could do Ritual if you're playing Colette or whatever, and you can just send some shitters off. it makes it sort of inefficient to chase those shitters, and that can sometimes help you to score ritual. But I would expect to see Sweating Bullets and Protected Territory quite a lot here, because In Your Face normally very popular, but it's corner deployment, which makes it a little less. But the table's pretty open, so if you've got a solid in-your-face scoring model that you think's likely to live and has the movement to get to that corner, then it's still a perfectly reasonable take. Hold Up Their Forces involves sort of having protracted fights and having slightly cheaper models, or having some summons that can score that. So you might see some summoners taking that, but generally speaking, I wouldn't love it. It doesn't. The good thing about Hold Up Their Forces is it doesn't spend any AP on interacting or whatever, so you can just go Operation Kill them and have a couple of cheap models that survive and just have them score that, and then get on with helping to kill or helping to displace models away from the raid markers. What else do I think about that one? Corner. Very good for Nekima too. Very good for Durdley masters that want to just sit and do their thing. Like Shenlong wants to get a bunch of chi. Nekima wants to summon and grow, and generally just get a shitload of free soul stones going on. Reduces the power of a few things like Levy. So Axelst in his group might be pushed more towards his Vix, for example. Okay, moving on to round 2. We've got Desolate Wasteland. This is a much trickier map, and oh baby, Asami. All right, so standard plant explosives. We've got Deathbeds, Outflank, Sweating Bullets, Information Overload, and Ensnare. So quite a lot of scheme marker placement and removal here. So if you've got some denial of scheme markers, so this is going to favor bio quite a bit. They've got a hell of a lot of free loot and that sort of thing, especially on plant explosives where you want to see first mate anyway. I could more than imagine some Zip, Clampets, or Ma really doing well here. And then you've got Deathbeds for stuff like Tide markers if you chose to go that route. I don't know why I've focused in on that. Asami, obviously, Deathbeds is amazing. And then you could run with some out of keyword tech. You could easily take in Snare, but generally you're probably leaning towards bullets. Most people tend to move away from Outflank, as we've seen GG4 move on. Less and less people sort of take it, and it really doesn't score particularly well. So I think you'll see either people who want Overload, people who deny Overload, and then you'll see a combination of Deathbeds and bullets with either Overload if you're going for it, or Ensnare if you're not. And you might see Deathbeds and Sweating Bullets, but that's leaning very heavily into the killing. And then if somebody's going plant explosives and moving out to the edges, you might struggle. So an interesting pool and a tricky map. This train really sort of cuts up the map a little bit, especially in combination with this big rock here, and the lava pools, obviously. You tend to end up in sort of lanes, and lanes can make it very interesting. Obviously, this cliff as well, so if you're starting on the right side, you've got the height advantage, as it were. If you're on the left side, you need models that can get up this cliff, so you want your leapers and your flyers and so on to be able to score there. Lin has some serious game on this map. Lin 1 and 2, actually. Yeah, tempting. But Lava, Hazardous with Asami. I suppose it's sort of anyone who can deal with Hazardous already can maybe start to deal with Asami. So, yeah, interesting thoughts from my perspective there. Cool map, cool pool. I like it a lot. Railside Meadows for round 3. We have flank ballots with Let Them Bleed, In Your Face, Deliver a Message, Espionage, and Prisoner. So pretty killy schemes on a very schemy pool, but flank, you can just get at them, get right into their face immediately if you want. Lots of concealing on this map, so that's the first thing I'm spotting. Lots of concealing terrain, especially all across the middle of the map. Other than that, nothing major. This top left flank, depending on where those deployment lines end up, could be a bit of a bitch because of this train, which can either hide height 1 models if you want to, or force you to walk to climb over, which could be annoying. Same here for this pipe fountain combination. Might be a slight irritation to unpack, but I think you've got enough room from here to just unpack cleanly if you wanted to. So it's going to be down to who's got those good balance options. Let Them Bleed's pretty unpopular for a lot of people. In Your Face, I would expect to see here most of the time. So I think you'll see people prepping for and against In Your Face. You'll see some crews with no 8-stone models to try and counteract that. And then you'll have to see people pivoting. Deliver's a pretty easy 1-point scheme. Prisoner's a pretty easy 1-point scheme. So Espionage and In Your Face are generally taken 2-point schemes. I think there are crews that can take Let Them Bleed, but you do want to be careful about how much healing your opponent has. Because if they've got healing, then Let Them Bleed becomes really, really tricky. Both points of it. Again, I quite like the pool. This one's pretty restricted because Prisoner isn't taken by a lot of people. It tends to be shunned. Deliver is a bit polarizing, so I think we're going to see quite a lot of In Your Face and Espionage here, but because of that, you're going to see a lot of people really well prepped for exactly that. And I think that when everybody's well prepped for what's coming on, and it gives people the opportunity to pivot away and try and catch you off guard, or to be really well prepped, especially In Your Face. In Your Face is a scheme that's been around for a long time now because it was in GG3 and stayed in GG4, so a lot of people are really ready for it, and that can lead to some very interesting games. Right, I hope you've enjoyed this and my little rant and ramble about the group stages. Unfortunately, I didn't come up with any hot take predictions. Mine are essentially that the vast majority of Player 1s and Player 2s will make it through, but with a little nod to Hamdog, Quicket, Ben and Bobber. I think they've got, if someone's coming out of these groups sort of out of sequence, I think it's probably them. And then with potential for Izzy to really pop off in Group 1 if something goes weird. But such strong players in terms of Andre and Radek there, so wouldn't get my vote. All right, I will do my best to fulfill my end of my prediction, but who knows, we've got some very strong players all about, so we'll see how it goes. Enjoy the top 32. I will do my very best to record all of my games, obviously, and I will offer to other players to record some of theirs as well, so we'll try and get those up on the channel as we move forwards, so I hope you enjoy those games. Take care, have a good day, and I'll see you for the next one.